Hey guys, Kevin Bupp here, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast, where our mission is to help you build and maintain massive amounts of cash flow through income producing real estate investments. And our guest for this week's show is prefab housing expert Garrett Moore. Now, Garrett is the CEO and founder of Agorus Inc., a technology-driven prefab home builder based in Southern California. Now, Agorus really flips the traditional home building model on its head by doing what would normally take maybe 4 to 5 months to build a stick-built home to 3 to 5 days using their advanced technology. Now, they leverage modern software and automated construction technology, allowing them to streamline and accelerate the home building process. And this allows them to deliver homes of unparalleled precision in a fraction of the time and without the delays and cost overruns that have become the hallmarks of the residential construction industry. And so, guys, with that, it's my honor to welcome Garrett Moore to the show. Garrett, how you doing today?
Good. How about yourself, Kevin?
I'm doing fantastic. Excited to have you here. As we were chatting about here before we went live with the interview, I thought it was going to be an exciting interview because, you know, given our background, we've been investing in manufactured housing for the past 10 years. And obviously there's lots of similarities with offsite construction, efficiencies of builds, lower costs associated with the builds, what have you, than that of a traditional site built construction model. And so excited to have you here, excited to learn about your business and, peel back the curtain a little bit. And so before we go into the nitty gritty of it all, Garrett, maybe take a few moments. I gave you a brief introduction there, but maybe fill in the gaps for us a little bit and tell us about yourself, your background, and ultimately how you found your way into this industry.
Right on. I never thought this is what I would do. I grew up in Arizona, loved playing team sports. Academics was a priority at home. So it took me to Stanford, played football at Stanford, did my undergrad in mechanical engineering, loved the physical world. Quickly you realize that you are not as talented as you think you are, and you can't keep playing sports indefinitely. But I love that camaraderie and that high functioning team environment. So thought I would take a shot and join the Navy. So joined the Navy, became a SEAL officer, spent a while doing the usual deployments, a tremendous experience to come of age as a young man, young father, young husband. But my third deployment, I'm 3 young kids deep. My wife and I decided we wanted to try and build a house, and we ran smack into the middle of it. And I was super naive. And I think I thought, because of all the other advances, we've got electric vehicles, we're landing rockets on barges. Like, we've got construction figured out as a society. And so I built my house modularly, volumetrically, offsite from a company up in Idaho. And it was a train wreck. And so after 6 general contractors, I said, hey, I'm going to do this myself. Kind of wade in, start to figure it out. And then you start to realize, oh my gosh, we need to fix this problem. So that's kind of how I circuitously came all the way around to construction.
That's interesting. So you actually went what one would have argued was the more efficient route. So you went the modular route. You didn't go the traditional site built, stick built construction. I mean, and so tell me what happened. Let's back up a little bit, because that's interesting, because most folks think immediately when modular comes to mind, that is more efficient, absolutely more efficient. So tell me what is broken about that traditional model, and ultimately, how does Agorus differ?
So I can actually give you a heads up. So my co-founder, one of my best friends, he and I are next door neighbors. We kind of had a race. Didn't intend for it to be that way, but it became a race. He stick built his house. I volumetrically built mine. The problem was, the modules came 90% finished, and this is one of the bigger challenges to prefab, and I'll kind of get into this in just a sec, but the reality is there's not the requisite handoff, the site interaction. So the modules were great, but then they sat for 6 months while the site crew figured out how to stitch them up. And so this is a symptom of the overall fragmentation that plagues construction, which is, the analogy I use is like, yeah, you could dump 10,000 parts in a driveway and build a Camaro, but it's not the right way to do it. And so for construction, you've got 30, 35, 40 different sub trades all trying to assemble this thing together. And it results in the old adage, camel's a horse designed by committee.
I love that. So tell me how Agorus solves that problem.
So I was mystified, because when you look at other industries, make it TVs, cell phones, cars, whatever it is, they've all tapped into the advances of manufacturing. And we take it for granted. Everything that's sitting on our desk right now probably been manufactured somewhere. Why did it not trickle down to construction? So went on a little bit of soul searching, travel around the world, see how other people build. Kind of just the good part about this is I have no construction background, so I'm coming in with a blank whiteboard. I have no idea what's going on. I was operating with a high degree of efficiency from a SEAL platoon yesterday. So today, why is this so slow? How do we connect these worlds? So in that context, my core thesis that we started the company on is there's something about Americans that causes us to build differently than the rest of the world. There's an inner cowboy, an inner individualist. We want it to match our neighborhood, our wife's style, our local building codes. There's a tremendous amount of disaggregation and fragmentation. So in that context, it makes it very difficult to tap into manufacturing. If we were all willing to live in the same house, I think this problem would have been solved a long time ago. Given that, where we decided to inject technology at a starting point is saying, let's design a software that can take that complexity and digest it and break it down into the simple. Because if we can do that, then we can export zeros and ones digitally to a factory, and then we can tap back into robotics and industrial automation and all the other technologies that are eligible for other industries.
How does that differ though from the, maybe we should back up a little bit even further and talk about the modular industry as it exists today. A lot of, I don't even know exactly, how what we're speaking to today with Agorus differs from that. Cause I think a lot of folks think that the efficiencies already exist in that traditional modular model. So maybe speak to the inefficiencies there. I know we talked about once the modules come and they're on site, that's where the inefficiencies really take place. But I guess I'm lost here. I'm trying to put the pieces together.
So in general, I'm talking kind of like type 5 construction. So essentially your 4 and 5 story apartment buildings and below. There's a handful of different styles of construction. So you've got HUD, which is what you know and love, which is manufactured housing. Separate, doesn't apply to building codes, it's real property, et cetera. Then you've got the traditional stick-built method, just slamming boards together at the job site. Then you've got some young companies that are trying to do extrusion or 3D printing, which is essentially a robot that will 3D print the concrete. Then you get into the more traditional that most people think of prefab, which is volumetric. The idea that I can ship a 12, 13, 14 wide cube. I can take these cubes and rearrange them, but I get the efficiencies offsite. The fifth one is where we really come in, and that's the idea of linear two-dimensional panelization. So when you take a complex structure and break it down, you can have almost unlimited architectural latitude when you break it into 2D panels. And then when you ship them, you don't ship a cube of air, you ship it condensed and flat stack. Because one of the challenges to prefab is the tyranny of distance and shipping costs.
Got it. So it's like the IKEA furniture flat packing model for homes.
Exactly. But but the differentiation would be, imagine if you had a software that lets you custom design the furniture. So you could pick whatever furniture you wanted, send it to the software, and then it would give you all the caricature instructions on how to put it together.
Got it. No, I understood now. So let's talk about cost savings. Maybe start with the time savings and go into actual cost savings. What can one expect utilizing this technology and this method versus the traditional method? How much does it really save us, and how much efficiencies do we really gain?
So it really depends on the market and the fit and finish, et cetera. Our general view is that we have to be cost effective every single place that we build. Given that, where most people start to receive the true financial savings is in less waste, less dumpsters to pick up said waste, less time, less carrying costs, less follow-up finish work. So when you have a really straight wall, now your cabinet guy is not coming back and everything's going a little bit faster. So when we look at all of that, we want to be 10 to 20% cheaper overall when you look at the total cost of the build. The vast majority of that comes from efficiencies that you don't necessarily see until you get further along in the project.
Got it. And so let's talk about the process itself. So I would work with an architect. Once we come to a final plan, that plan would be given to Agorus. Agorus's proprietary technology or software would dissect that and basically break it down into a 2D model, which allow us to basically flat pack, manufacture and flat pack that home and deliver it to the job site, ready to be assembled. Is that, in a nutshell, is that what would happen?
It is. And ultimately where we obsess is trying to get our developers from slab to sheetrock in a matter of a couple of days. That's the vision, because at the end of the day, I don't want to get into the business yet of dealing about cabinets and floors and countertops and nursery colors and all the others. And so we want to provide as much choice and latitude in the overall design of the home while maximizing our core value, which is really accelerating a developer through rough trades.
Has this model or technology been scaled in other countries? Is it being utilized at present time?
Yes, but scaled, no. So when you look at Japan or New Zealand or Germany or some of these others that are leading the way, one of the things that they don't have to deal with that we do is scale of distance. So in Germany, you can ship everything in a couple hundred miles. It's no big
Mm.
deal. So one small family firm can build 100 homes a year, et cetera. When you look at the American market, and we're churning out 1.6 new starts, 1.6 million new starts every year, we have so much geography to cover that nobody's ever been able to build a nationally scalable technology. There's just been a series of regional prefab builders, and they'll prefab modules, or they'll prefab trusses and panels, but
Hmm.
nobody that's kind of looked at this from a true technology company play.
Okay. No, fantastic. And I know that we had talked before we started recording that you guys have got some these aren't just individual, single family stick built. That's kind of for the mass market. You guys do that as well, but you also do some larger projects. You had mentioned a 40 unit townhome project that you're currently working on. So this is, and this is speaking to our audience. A lot of the listeners are in the multifamily space. And so this isn't just I'm looking to build a new home, for my family to live in. And I might, take a look at this technology to save me some time, energy and effort, and some headaches along the way, right? But this could also, it will be utilized. It is being utilized for larger scale commercial projects, more specifically residential projects, multifamily townhome communities, and things of that nature. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I would say that single family homes kind of were our start, and it
Hmm.
showcases the complexity of design that we can handle. But the 95% of our customers are going to be larger developers, and whatever they're developing doesn't matter to us. You want to develop ADUs, single family, multifamily apartments, it does not matter to us.
And I believe I was doing some reading on the company. You guys, I mean, this was founded and you guys launched during the pandemic. Talk to me about that.
In retrospect, it ended up being a huge blessing,
Okay.
because while the world's falling apart, we didn't even have time to necessarily get wrapped up in it, because you're so busy in launching a business. And when you're
Hmm.
a startup and you're venture backed, you're not going to make money for several years. That's how you're launching a new technology, because you're in R&D and you're trying to develop. So it actually ended up being the perfect time to start. Now tack onto that kind of the post-pandemic life, where we're starting to look at the housing shortage is getting worse. Labor shortage continues to be an issue as people are not going back into the trades, et cetera. And we feel like there are tremendous tailwinds to a technology that can fix a lot of these problems.
Talk to me about this labor shortage, and not just as it relates to the pandemic, folks not going back into the
Yep.
trades, but there's a lot of data that suggests that there's tens of thousands or millions that are aging out of the trades, and no younger folks that are coming in and stepping in their boots.
One of the analogies, or the phrases you'll hear people use in construction, is it's easy to turn off, very difficult to turn back on.
Hmm.
So the foundation for this was laid back in 2008. Global financial crisis, housing plummets, mass exodus from the workforce. That a decent chunk of that never came back in. Concurrently, you also have a millennial and a Gen Z generation coming of age that does not have an interest in swinging a hammer at the job site, because they're looking for a purpose, a passion, a calling, more technology incorporation, et cetera. So now, to your point, you've got an aging workforce where the average age, I think, across the country in the trades is in their 40s. You've
Hmm.
got some states that have more than 90% of their labor that's older than 40. And there's a recent stat came out basically saying for every 5 folks leaving the trades, there's only one backfilling.
Hmm.
And so at a time when housing, we're 5.5 million units underwater collectively across the nation, it's like Econ 101, supply and demand. There's still a huge need for it. The demand is there, and we just don't have the labor to produce enough houses to make up for this deficit.
And let's be honest, when you're in your mid 40s and you've been working construction for 20, 25 years of your life, there's a good chance you're not going to make it to the traditional 65 years of age working in that trade if you're
It's
working
hard.
on the labor side, right? I mean, it's
It's
just hard
hard.
work. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It beats you up. It beats you up. So talk to me about accessory dwelling units. That's a hot topic in many markets across the country. I was I've somehow strangely entered into many conversations over the past like 3 months with a few multiple different individuals that are really hot on this topic. They've got a number of businesses that they've been scaling. One more specifically in Orange County, California. Really the model of buying single family homes that have a large enough lot, and then ultimately putting a accessory dwelling unit there, and basically turning one rental into two, and looking at it from that business model perspective. But talk to me about, the problem that the ADUs solve in some of these more densely populated markets across the country, and then ultimately Agorus and how Agorus can help, again, really, I guess, race and track down and solve the housing shortage problem.
So that's a great topic. There's a lot to unpack there. So obviously ADUs are front and center for us in California, but we're starting to see them get propagated throughout the country. They made it into President Biden's crisis housing action plan that he launched a couple months ago. At a high level, I think the reason they have such appeal and they have a kind of a quick fix is they allow you to essentially circumvent a lot of kind of the not in my backyard crowd. And so it's tough to tackle this issue without kind of stepping into the politics, but you kind of have at a governor's level, you have the ability to kind of, with the sweep of a pen, take some authority from the cities. Now, Garrett's personal opinion, that's probably not necessarily all bad, because a lot of the times the barrier to construction are the cities and local jurisdictions themselves, because the people that vote in that have every interest in not increasing density. But if you look at it in the abstract, you go, there's just not enough houses, they have to live somewhere, et cetera. So what it does is it allows for a quick inject of additional units and essentially a win-win-win. Now, the only loss is traffic and wear and tear on the neighborhood, but you throw a 2-bed, 2-bath in the backyard, that can house a family. And for the homeowner, they're looking at this going, shoot, down economy, post-COVID, I don't know, let's do that and let's make some extra money. So we are seeing a tremendous amount of consumer demand for them, and a tremendous amount of uncertainty from cities that don't know how to deal with this. They don't know who to talk to. Does the city permit it? Does the state permit it? But I think ADUs are not a California fad. I believe we will start to see them on a national scale because it's likely the fastest way to inject new housing units into the economy.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. So talk to me about the growth trajectory here over the coming years of Agorus. So what does that look like?
So like we've talked about, this problem is big. The way I like it is, in order to undo the debt that we have, we would need the top 100 largest builders in the country to double their capacity for a decade to get out from under this hole. They don't have the labor to do that right now. So we look at this and go, our vision is to be the largest builder in the country by the end of the decade. I don't want to replace D.R. Horton or Lennar. I just want to build a technology that builds homes for them better, faster, cheaper, and greener. And so as we look at scaling up to our goal of 100,000 units a year by the end of the decade, a lot of this centers around, we've got to get our technology tight. If we don't get copy correct, copy and paste turns into a disaster as we start to scale. So really over the next 12 to 18 months, we're really focusing on getting our technology tight, our software and our hardware manufacturing capabilities, so that come 24, 25, 26, we can really start to expand nationally. As most people probably realize, Florida, Texas, Arizona, California, like half of US construction is in a handful of spots.
Mm-hmm. What does the manufacturing plant size, like how large of a plant do you need to produce, 100,000 homes a year? What does that look like?
You'd never be able to probably produce 100,000 out of a single factory. The way we look at this is probably a series of regional factories that are in key metropolitan markets with a couple 100-mile radius. So you imagine you drop a pin, draw a 200-mile radius. Where does that put you? You look at Southern California, Northern California, Phoenix, Tri-City area in Texas, Carolinas, Florida, et cetera. So we're looking at probably 5 to 10 larger regionalized factories that are each producing 5 to 10,000 units a year, as well as trying to build a technology that you can then license and scale to your lumber suppliers, to all the infrastructure that's already in place. I don't actually want to necessarily build every single house. I want to build the technology that builds every single house.
Yeah, no, I love that. I absolutely love that. What haven't I asked you, Garrett, about Agorus or just this technology in general that you feel would be valuable for our listeners to know and understand?
I think the biggest thing would be understanding. I think investors get the value of time, but I think we've set such a low bar for the industry that we don't demand more from it. The fact that we as society, we as investors in real estate are okay with projects taking 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months is just so unique. And I see a future where we look at construction, we look at housing more like a product and less like a patchwork of services. And so I think that's the future that I'm seeing. But to your question, I don't know that there's anything you haven't asked yet that's relevant.
How about conventional financing? I mean, are there any challenges or barriers there associated with getting debt on one of these or one of these homes that are built with this technology?
No, because we fit within the current payment structure that
Yeah.
exists like a traditional build. I did run into this on the volumetric side where you've got banks that don't want to pay for an asset that's not at the job site, and there is
Yeah.
some lending innovation there. I will put a shameless plug for, if you or any of your listeners come across a lending product for ADUs that is scalable, there is a tremendous market niche there, because one of the biggest
Mm.
reasons I hear from customers that they are not building more ADUs, which are rental cash cows, is largely because of a lack of access to capital for the homeowner.
Yep. Yep. No, that was part of the conversations I've had the last couple of months with a few individuals that are in that space.
Yeah,
Looking for an
that
equity partner because the money's hard to find, the capital's hard to find. It's not readily available. So,
yeah.
well, fantastic. Well, Garrett, this has been a lot of fun. Really appreciate you coming on the show. For those listeners that want to learn more about you, your business, the technology behind it, Agorus in general, where's the best place to find you?
Best place is probably either the website or me personally on LinkedIn. It takes a village to raise a startup, so we're always looking for interested partners and technologists and construction innovators that want to partner, want to work with us, et cetera. So very, very much eager and happy to connect. A rising tide floats all boats. One of the things I say is the competition is not somebody else; it's the status quo.
Yeah.
It's 100-year-old slamming nails into boards out in the sun.
I love it. I love it, Garrett. It's been a lot of fun having you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Likewise. Thanks, Kevin.
Alrighty, guys, that's all we have for this week's show. So until we meet again next week, this is your host, Kevin Bupp, wishing you huge success. Take care.